All right, back in the basement again today, bringing you along for a day of training on Juggernaut. I am in my last day of my first week of my first block of strength. So I spent the last couple of weeks doing hypertrophy-based training. Love it and hate it. I know there's some controversy or some differing of opinions of people who say that is a hypertrophy block really that beneficial, especially when you're only doing it for a couple of weeks in powerlifting training? In my opinion, yes, for two main reasons. Number one, for me, I've just found generally my work capacity, my aerobic capacity gets better from doing those higher rep sets, especially because those workouts are longer. So I try to condense my downtime between sets. I'll superset stuff so I get really my lungs working in it. And then probably more importantly is after a couple of weeks of hypertrophy in sets of like 10 and 12, it's like, this sucks. I can't wait to get to the strength training block. So when I finally make that transition to strength training back, I'm like, hell yeah, this is what I signed up for, and it reinvigorates me for training. Now, that being said, on day 4, right now, it's a bit of an easier day because it's more just like a glorified upper body day. I'm gonna do some bench work, I'm gonna do some back work, probably some buys, probably some tries. It's the summer, it's Friday. Might go to the beach later if the weather is nice. So it's like, hey, this is like an old school workout for me. So I'm gonna bring you along for the ride, and let's see what I get into. Okay, so top set of bench went well, 245 for a set of 6. That was the higher end of what it suggested for the Juggernaut. I rated it at a 6, and it's giving me 6 sets of 6 for back off, so there is still some volume. The way that the strength blocks works is the beginning weeks have high volume, and as you get higher intensity, the volume will drop some. But overall, things went well, and I'm sure I'll put a screenshot of what actually happened because those 235 sets are going to adjust based off of what the RPE of them are. So if the RPE is pretty heavy, or I feel like it's like a 7 or 8, it's gonna drop them down some. If I rate them lighter, it's going to bump the weight up a little. But that being said, let me show you a little bit of what I'm working with. All right, so right now I've been using the Hansu combo rack quite a bit. I like it a lot outside of the colors not really matching anything else. But I really like using this because I've always found that going into a competition, transitioning from, my power rack or my setup bench stand, it's always a little bit different going to a dedicated combo. So the more experience I get with this in training, I think the better it's going to be. There are some things I like about it. I will do a video on it, but I really like how these feet are extended out. So it's really stable. It's really heavy duty. It weighs like 440 pounds or so. There are some room for improvement, which I will talk about, but let's talk about the bar I'm using. This is the Gymway Oni bar, which was a home gym Discord exclusive. Has probably some of the coolest end caps that you'll ever see. As you can kind of see right there. It also has probably the smoothest sleeves you'll come across, which is why I'm actually using collars for once on bench. Typically I don't use collars, but if you have any kind of movement in the bar, these are so slick that the plates will slide right off. On the inside, you have these tapered collars, which are really cool to see. And they also are laser engretched some. Let's see if I can move this a little bit. You see it says Oni on the inside. This is black oxide. It's a higher TPI. So these are definitely mountain knurls, but they're in a smaller or more compact density. So it's really grippy without being aggressive. And then it has those dual ring marks in the middle, which are a pretty classy touch. So on to the next exercise. All right, so I just got done with these seated rows, and one of the things I try to do for each block is kind of switch the accessory movements up within reason, meaning that there's a handful that I pick from, but I try to rotate through them. There's only so much given exercises I can do in a given week, in a given block, and I don't want to be switching it up every week because that would kind of defeat the purpose. But every block I do try to mix it up a little bit, but I do have my favorites. So one of the things I wanted to work in for this block is some seated rows. I've been using the equipment, which I'll show you in just a second. But the problem is on these movements that I don't do all the time, especially when I have reps of 12 to 15 like I did today, it's hard for me to dial it in necessarily and make the appropriate selection right off the bat. And instead of just spend time doing sets upon sets, trying to work up to what I'm supposed to hit in terms of like an RPE or whatever the case may be, in this case, I think it's reps in reserve, what I'll do is I'll just make a better adjustment for next time. And again, my goal here isn't to blow my load on the accessory work and just build volume up, especially with a lot of people who have issues with the time that some of these workouts can take. So I'll just do my 3 working sets, even though they're way under where I should be, but I'll have a better idea for when I do this next week. All right, a little bit of a wide angle lens here for you guys to fit everything in. So we're using the HLP single stack. In this case, the adjustable cable column. I have the foot plate on there as well. I'm using the Cleva built Atlas, which is basically like a couple different multi-grip points in one. It also has the attachment there if you want to do landmine work with it. And then the Williams Strength bench. So this is a great setup to do seated rows. Again, with the weight, this single stack here, the high actual lat pull down is a true 1-to-1 ratio. The adjustable cable column is a 2-to-1 ratio. So you're basically halving the stack, which is 350 pounds. So it's 175 max on the row, which is light for some people, most people that strength train regularly. So there's a couple options. They do have band pegs included if you want to do band pegs. I also down here have a weight pin that you can add to here and then put other weights on. So again, it's not going to be anything where you're going to necessarily need more weight necessarily once you start adding in some of those things, but it is just one of those things that you have to consider when dealing with ratios and pulley systems. All right, so incline dumbbell bench is done. Worked up to 85 pounds and then just did sets of like 12 from there. Felt pretty good. Gonna move on to bis and tris. One of the things I like to do for this ending of the upper body type days are superset those things in and just kind of blast through them. So let's see what I get into. All right, so workout complete. Took me about 1 hour and 20 minutes for the biceps and triceps. Superset it in on the Prime HLP single stack. So got a lot of use out of that today, which is great. It's a great piece of equipment. One of the things as I wrap up this week that I noted in the training, and I've been trying this actual cycle to make sure I put in like the thoughts before training, after training, wrap up of the week, is that I really wanted to have a good first week. And I think I did that. The problem that I face, which is also kind of just one of the things that comes along with filming or trying to make content while I'm down here, is I take too long between sets, whether that be filming clips, whether that be responding to people on Instagram, YouTube, that kind of stuff, or just taking too much time, especially when the sets are like RPE 6 or 7. Probably don't need to take as long as rest between sets as I would with some of the heavier work. Something I need to address. Luckily, I have the time today to train, so I got it in, but this session probably should have took me like an hour instead of 1 hour 20. But it is what it is. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the look in. Let me know what you want to see in future videos. As always, thanks for watching. And as always, which I just said again, stay big.